unmute yourself and you can say with me. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Ti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let's again start sharing.
Finish telling me now. Dude, I'm not gonna wait that long.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. I just have to quickly address this quickly.
Teji, we can't hear you.
Yes, just give me 1 minute. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so we'll get into the reading. Chapter 6, Transcending the Designations and Problems. So if you all remember what we were talking about, the problems that, we all face, everybody faces problems, right? I mean, what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? This is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. This place is place of misery and it is place of temporary. It is not the permanent situation or location that we supposed to be, or swarupa, so to say, that's the right word, that we are supposed to be in. But we have this designated, so many designations along with the body, which are all in the temporary nature. So that's what the nature of this material world is, temporary and miserable. So transcending designations and problems. Okay, so miseries and all these designations that we have. So let's do a little quick recap from little last paragraph of page 80. We stopped at 81, so we'll just go a little back and then we'll start. Okay, so it is the fact, however, that the problem of one who takes to the shelter of Krishna, God has solved. For this reason, if none other one should apply his devotional service to Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudev Bhagavati Yogaha Prayojitaha. If one engages in the devotional service of Vasudev, he will receive the highest knowledge without delay. Jana Jnanayati ashu vigrayam. The word jnana, vairagyam refers to the knowledge by which one becomes detached from the material allurement. The word jnana means knowledge and vairagya means detachment. Both knowledge and detachment are required in the human form of life. So why is Prabhupada saying, let's meditate a little bit on this point, that why is Prabhupada saying that we need jnana and vairagya? So Prabhupada, first of all, to start with, jnana means the knowledge that detaches from the material allurement or material attractions or material attachments that we have. So the knowledge that can remove those attachments from from those bondages, that is called the real knowledge. Krishna said that in Bhagavad Gita, right? That's the in which chapter? In chapter 7, knowledge of the absolute, right? Krishna is saying, this is what I call knowledge. Knowledge, that means which can remove our material attachments or attractions. And vairagya means the detachment. So why are these both required? Here you see the sentence, Prabhupada is saying both knowledge and detachment are required in the human form of life. See, unless we have knowledge or unless we have this and unless we have detachment from this, what will happen? We will not know who we are, right? We will be here forever because we are bound by the karma. There is something that is holding on to us. If you wanted to go outside the door, if you wanted to go out and play, if I hold your hand very tightly like this, what will happen? Will you be able to go? Even if you want to go, you will be able to go? No. So like this, what is holding us here is our karma cycle that we are in. That's holding us here. We cannot leave, we cannot untangle ourselves and go on our own unless we purify ourselves, unless we are freed from that cycle of karma, of that karmic cycle, which is birth, old age, disease, and death. And how do we get removed? How do we get freed from that? Is through understanding who we are, first of all. After understanding who we are, understanding our position and our source, where we came from, our identity, our true identity, our place where we belong to, and the Supreme Lord, who is the cause of our existence, or the source also, and our relationship with him, unless we understand all this, there is no way we will be freed from this bondage, right? So one should know that. So that's why Prabhupada is saying that this is required. This is required because unless we know, we will not be free. We will be entangled here in this cycle of birth and death. One should know, I am a spirit soul. I have nothing to do with this material world. But because I have a desire to enjoy it in different way, I am transmigrating from one body to another. I do not know when this began, but it is still going on. This is real knowledge. To be knowledgeable, one must understand his constitutional position and realize how he is suffering in this material world. That perfection of knowledge comes when one becomes Vasudeva Parayana, devoted to Lord Vasudeva. And in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudevah sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many, many births, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Those who those great souls who know perfectly well Krishna, Vasudev is source of everything is very rare. It is easy to find so-called Mahatma, great soul with the long breeds and mustaches who tell everyone that one has they are one with God, and when they die they will wake up and become God. But these are not real Mahatmas, rather the Duratmas, the hard hearted, because they want to encroach on the rightful position of Krishna. Okay, who would like to read a little bit and become
Mataji,
a
can Mihika?
yeah. Yeah, Manhar, maybe you can go next. Let's start with Mihika.
Where do I start, Mataji?
If there were servants,
Okay. If there were a servant in the office who tried to occupy the position of the employer, would the employer like it? Similarly, any living entity who is trying to become God is not very much to God's liking. Of course, no one can become God, but this endeavor to become God or his competitor is not very pleasing to him. Persons who try are described in Bhagavad Gita as Dvishataha, envious. The Lord says, Tanaham Dvishataha Kruran Shramsareshu Naradaman Kshipamya Shubhan Ashu Risheva Yonishu. Envious, mischievous, the lowest of mankind, these do I ever put back into the ocean of material existence into various demoniac species of life. Bhagavad Gita 16.19. They
yeah,
are put into
this is so just let's give it a little pause here. This is very, very important. See what Krishna is saying in this verse. I'll read again. Envious, mischievous, and lowest of mankind, these do I ever put back into into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. See, it is clearly, so clearly saying that unless we get over this demonic nature that we have acquired because of this attachments and a sense of enjoyment and enviousness, unless we get rid of those things from our heart, what is going to be the destination? What will be the destination? Can anybody answer? What
hell,
will be
the hellish planets.
hellish planets? And here, what is Krishna saying in this verse? What is this verse saying? Envious, mischievous, and lowest of mankind, these I do put ever back into the ocean of material existence. So we will come back again. This is so clearly, mentioned here, right? So, yes, go ahead, carry on. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, Mataji. They are put into hellish conditions because they are envious of God's position. First, they try to occupy high positions in this material world, and when they are frustrated in this attempt, they think, now I shall occupy the position of God. Of course, this desire is also frustrated because no one can become God. God is God, and the living entity is the living entity. God is supreme and infinite. We are infinitesimal. Our position is to serve God, and when we act according to our position, we become happy. By imitating God, happiness cannot be obtained. Yasyeka nishvatitakalam atavalambya jivanti loma. Vilaja jagad andanataha. Brahm Samhita 5.5 46. There are innumerable universes, and within one breath of Mahavishnu, these universes are inhaled and dissolved within his body. How then can a living entity become God? God is not so cheap. Therefore, we must become advanced in knowledge and accept Vasudeva Krishna as the supreme. There is no question of Krishna being a man. At no stage in his appearance on earth did he appear as an ordinary living entity. Even as a baby, he performed miraculous feats away beyond the abilities of the ordinary living entity. One should not consider that when he is surrendering to Krishna, he is surrendering to an ordinary man, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, that is confirmed by all Vedic literatures. Agam Duvanti. All reactions to sinful activities are cancelled when one surrenders to Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself advises personal surrender to him. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshasyami ma suchaha. Give up all varieties of religiousness and just surrender unto me, and in return I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Therefore you have nothing to fear. Bhagavad Gita 18.66.
Thank you. Thank you, Mehika. So see here, God is clearly telling us about our destination. If we surrender, we have nothing to fear. This is like one of the main instructions that Lord is giving. The surrender to me. Just surrender means follow the instruction, which will uplift us. So is Krishna, is Lord like a dominator? Is Lord the dominator? He wants us all to be surrendered to him. Is that so why he's saying that? No. Why is he asking us to surrender? Because if we listen to, like, it's very simple to understand. Our parents tell us so many things to do, right? Okay, do this, do that, do that. Are they trying to dominate and overpower us? Is that why they are saying all those things or giving us instructions to do? Because they care for us, right? They say because they love us and they want us to not harm ourselves. They want to protect us. And this is exactly why Krishna is saying this to us. He's not saying surrender to become a superpower, or he wants to dominate. No, but he is, just give me 1 minute. So not to dominate us, but because he cares for us. And what he wants to do, he wants to protect us. He doesn't want us to be degraded or fall, in suffering. And that's why he's giving such instructions. By following those, it will uplift us, it will purify us. And once, once we are purified, then, this place is not, like Lord says, this place is miserable. This place is temporary. We get out of this pool. Mrityu samsara sagara. There is a verse in 12th chapter. He's saying that I take you out of this. And here Krishna is saying that I put you back in if they are envious, if they are mischievous, if they are, of the souls which are, not on the path of dharma, who do not have the, the vivek, or to, the right understanding, they come back. He says, I put them back. And in the 12th chapter, he's saying, I uplift and I bring them to the spiritual abode, which is my abode. He gives so much instruction about his, information about himself, about his abode. And here he's saying that do not fear. I will free you from all these entanglements if you listen to, these instructions. And that's what this surrender means here. Okay, very good. Manohar, you want to go next? Therefore, one who is devotee.
Okay. Therefore, one who is a devotee, Vasudeva Parayana, and who simply engages in devotional service is immediately freed from all sinful activities. Devotional service to Krishna or Krishna consciousness can never be attained by any amount of speculation, but by the causeless mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna. It is a matchless gift bestowed by the Mahatma or a great soul out of compassion for fallen living entities. It is said that by the grace of Krishna one gets a guru or spiritual master, and by the grace of the spiritual master one gets Krishna. This is like the gift of the sunrise. At night there's darkness, but in the morning, as soon as the sun rises, immediately millions of miles of darkness are removed. In the same way, if we try to make the sun of Krishna rise within our hearts, all of our problems will be solved.
Okay, thank you, Manohar. So I think this ends the chapter here. So mainly, this chapter is talking about us, our own upliftment, and that is what will remove us from this great problem. The biggest problem is of the problem of old birth, old age, disease, and death. It's temporariness in this material world. So I think that's the main essence of the chapter here. We finished this chapter, and now we'll move on to chapter 7, the matchless gift, liberation in Krishna consciousness. I think this is going to be the the main theme of the whole book, about how this Krishna consciousness is the matchless gift. And what is that matchless, and what is that gift? That is liberation. Removing from these, liberation means unentangling us from all this bondage that we have. Okay, so let's see who can read. Param, you want to read?
Okay, Mataji.
Manohar, you can read after Param little more. So let's start here with chapter 7. Yes, go ahead, Param.
Chapter 7, the matchless give liberation in Krishna consciousness. If we simplify worship the original person, Adi Purusham, we need not fear being misled by anyone. Sridhara Swami, the original commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, explains that one can reach the perfection of life simply by devotional service, Keva Bhaktiya. One need not to be dependent on any other process. Sukdev Goswami says that one can put an end to material life by one stroke, Kilva. There is no need to be first undergo serve penance and austerity. Practice self-will, control the mind and senses. Give charity, perform great sacrifices, and become a very truthful and clean. Simply by one stroke, by expecting Krishna consciousness, one immediately rises to the highest position. By taking to Krishna consciousness, one develops all transcendental qualifications. In the goldsmith uses a small hammer and taps the gold many times, but the blacksmith uses a large hammer, and with one stroke his job is finished. This is the blacksmith's method. We take the big hammer of Bhakti Yoga and finish all material life. There is no need to undergo the many lesser disciplines nor to follow any other processes. In actually, there is no possibility of even following the other Vedas processes to perfection. For one instance, in the Hatha Yoga process would say you have to become a strict brahmachari and sit in the forest with your body at a right angle to the ground, pressing your nose with your finger for 6 months. Okay. We can't hear you, Mataji.
Okay, sorry, I was on mute. Manohar, can you go ahead and read? Who
Okay,
could follow?
Who could follow such an instruction? Since such a method is not practical in this present age, the goldsmith method has to be discarded. The solution is to take the blacksmith's hammer of Krishna consciousness and finish off all sinful reactions immediately. By devotional service, one has to become Vasudeva Parayana, a devotee of Lord Vasudeva or Lord Krishna. In other words, we have to learn how to become lovers of Vasudeva. If the world takes up this Krishna consciousness, the planet is certain to be peaceful. Now the earth is quickly becoming a hellish planet, and if this Krishna consciousness is not taken up, this hellish condition will progress despite all advances in education and economic development. Therefore, those who are thoughtful should take this movement very seriously and try to understand its value. It is not something manufactured by one man or a group of disciples. It is authoritative and age old, based on the Vedic literatures which date back thousands of years. Niharam iva bhakstara bhaksharaha. Bhaksharaha refers to the sun. The sun immediately dissipates mist or fog as well as darkness. As stated before, we should try to make the sun of Krishna rise within our heart. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, also it is stated that Krishna is like the sun and that Maya, the illusory energy, is darkness. Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahe Maya Ra Adhikar. As soon as the sun of Krishna is present, the darkness of Maya immediately disappears. Without following this process, it's very difficult to overcome the ocean of darkness. Maya, if you simply teach people to surrender to Krishna, God, all the fog and mist of illusion will disappear. The method is very simple. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Ram.
Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Ram.
The more one goes on chanting, the more the darkness of um yeah, the more
Many lives.
the the more one goes on chanting, the more the darkness of many lives is dissipated. Chatur Darpana Marjanam. By chanting, one can cleanse the dust from the mirror of his mind and perceive things very good distinctly. Thus, one will know what God is, and what this world is, what our relationship with God in this world is, and how to live in this world, and what our next life is. Such knowledge is not taught in schools, where one is taught how to manufacture acquired products for sense gratification. This is always a hard struggle going on, involving man's attempt to dominate material nature. However, for every convenience he manages to produce, there is an inconvenience accompanying it. For example, recently some engineers designed an airplane which can fly at great speeds without danger. When the plane flies, However, it breaks windows all over the city. Our time is thus being wasted in constructing so many devices which give us temporary and artificial convenience at the price of a proportionate uh, amount of inconvenience. This is all part of the law of karma, law of action and reaction. For whatever we do, there must be a reaction by which we become entangled. That is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Yajnaratat karmano anyatra loka ayam karma bandhanaha tad artham karma kaunteya mukta sangaha samacharaha.
Very nice. Thank you, Manohar. So what is it?
Can Govinda read next?
Yes, Govinda. We'll just discuss a little bit here and then you can go read next. So what is Prabhupada saying here? There is a shloka in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaha Krishna taha mayara nahi adhikara. Means where there is Krishna, there is enlightenment. There is no darkness. How? Okay. So if there is if there is darkness somewhere, but when the sun rises, when the sun is there, what happens? Is there darkness anymore? No. So when we understand this knowledge, when we, what is Krishna saying is such a knowledge is not taught in schools. How then we gain that knowledge? By when we chant, right? So that's like very primary, very, very basic thing is like we regulate our life. We have, some regulations to follow. We do not eat something that is contaminated. That means it has to be sanctified food. And then slowly, gradually, as we develop ourselves into the mode of goodness and we chant, then slowly, gradually, we try and we get the realizations of what? We get who we are. We know we are souls. Everybody knows we are souls. But then do they act on that platform? No. They still are so attached. Something will happen again, they'll be so miserable with the body and so miserable with, things around. Although they understand they are not the body, then why that misery? Because there is no realization. What happens is, even though we know, but then that second layer of that realization, until we realize, until we really feel that way. Realization means we really feel it that way. Until that is there, what happens? We are still into that same loop. So by this knowledge, and then chanting slowly, gradually, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, right? Slowly, gradually, as we chant, we get purified. And then we get purified. That's what Krishna is saying. This is, it becomes entanglements are removed. So in here, what is Krishna saying in this verse? So let's see the translation. Go ahead and go in the translation. Work done as a sacrifice.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu as to be performed. Otherwise, work behind one who has material work. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his sacrification,
In that
and
way.
in that way, you will always remain unattached and free from bondage. Bhagavad Gita 3.9. When one acts for sense gratification, works entangles him. Whether the work is good or bad, but if one works for Krishna, Yajana Rata Karmon, he will be free regardless
of the
of the
possible
possible describability
of his work.
of his work.
Very nice. So work has to be done. We cannot stop working, but if we do it in the right consciousness, if we do as, and what is that right consciousness? We understand that whatever we are doing, it is just the responsibility given to us for the time being, for that particular, situation, whatever Krishna has put us in. But we don't own all of that. We are not the proprietors. We have to do nothing with it. So what will happen is, because of that consciousness, we will not do something that is wrong. We will not be pulled into doing something that is wrong. So that means it will not bond. If we are not doing anything wrong, then it will not keep us bound with this, the cycle of karma. So Krishna is saying here that son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and that way you will remain unattached. Okay, very nice. Let's see. Nihal, you want to read? Not only Shukadev Goswami. And
Yes. Not only does Sukadev Goswami recommend unalloyed devotional service, but he further says that by devotional service, one's sinful activities will be negated. Every one of us is more or less sinful. For if we are not sinful, we would have not been put into material bodies. As soon as one is free from sinful life, he is liberated and transferred to the spiritual world in a spiritual body. The whole process is to cleanse oneself from the contamination of sinful or material life. Sukadev Goswami said, "My dear king, those who are sinful can become purified from contamination by tapa adibhi, practicing austerity." Sukadev also said, however, that no one can become completely purified by executing this process of austerity. There are many examples of yogis who practiced austerities but did not emerge completely pure. Vishwamitra Muni, for example, was a Kshatriya who wanted to become a Brahmana, and therefore began to practice austerity. Later on, however, he became a victim of Menaka, a society girl of the heavenly planets. Because Vishwamitra was not pure, he became entangled with her and begot a child. Therefore, it is said that even if one performs austerities and penances, worldly circumstances are so implicating that somehow or other will involve one again and again. How?
in the material modes.
In the material modes of nature, they are examples of sannyasis who give up the world, renouncing it as false, saying, "Let me turn into Brahman." But they again became entangled in the work of the world when they set up hospitals and perform philanthropic work and welfare activities. If the world is false, why are they attracted to welfare activities? The philosophy of Krishna consciousness maintains that this world is not false, but that it's temporary. God created this world and he is so true, he is so temporary. So how can his creation be false? Because this is the creation of God, and God is the absolute truth. This creation is also true. We simply see it otherwise due to illusion. The world is a fact, but it is a temporary fact. A person may claim something within this world to be his property, but that is a false claim. It is a fact that is someone's property, but it is God's property. Ishwaram idam sarvam. This does not mean, however, that the property is false. What based on the what is false is the claim of the property.
which is based upon a puffed up false consciousness that the individual is the proprietor, the master, or God. Everyone desires to be a master or a proprietor of something, then minister, then president, then God. When everything else fails, the living entity wants to become God. The tendency is there they want to become the greatest of all, but the fact remains that God is the.
God is the greatest.
And God is the greatest, and the living entity is small compared to him. The smallest is not false, and the greatest is not false. But when the small thinks that he is great, that is false.
Yes, very nice. Thank you, Nihal. It's very nice to have you read, Nihal. You should read every day, right? Whenever we have the reading, you should participate, right?
Okay.
It's very nice. Thank you. Okay. Jyotsna, you haven't read. Can you read?
From
We
We
understand from
we understand from Vedic literature that Brahman or the spirit is Aniyamsam, smaller than an atom, and Mahato Mihiyamsam, greater than the greatest. As far as we can conceive, the space which contains the universe is the greatest. But Krishna has shown millions of universes in his mouth. The greatness of God cannot be comprehended by the living entities, who are part and parcel of God. As living entities, we are very minute, infinitesimal, and God is infinite. Indeed, the magnitude of individual spirit soul is so microscopic that it cannot be seen. One cannot even imagine it with his material senses. Therefore, it is said that the material soul is smaller than an atom, aniyamsam. Since the living entities and Krishna, the Supreme Lord, are both spirit, they are qualitatively one. Quantitatively, however, the Lord is great and the living entities are small. The fact can be accepted immediately on the basis of Vedic information. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Yasyaika nishvasita kalam atavalambya jivan loma vilajha jagad ananda nataha. Many millions of universes come out of God's body when he exhales, and they again disappear when he inhales. Simply by his breathing, millions of universes are created and dissolved. If this is the case, then how can the living entities claim proprietorship over anything? One's position is safe only in so far as he does not falsely declare himself to be God or proprietor. It has become fashionable to claim to be God, and fools accept such claims. But from the Vedic literature, we understand that God is not so cheap. As long as we are not making puffed up, ego-centered claims, we are already liberated. There is no need to actually seek liberation. Well, that one's self is separate from the body. Therefore, Sukadev Goswami said, Prayaschittam Vimarsanam, develop your knowledge. That will give you relief. Our knowledge is perfect when we come to know that we are very small particles of spiritual sparks, and that God, the Supreme, the greatest spiritual identity, supplies all our necessities. Eko bahunam yo vidatati kaman. By knowing ourselves as minute particles, part and parcel of God, we can understand that our duty is to serve God. God is the center of all creation of the whole universal body. He is the enjoyer and we are his servitors. As this conception becomes clear, we become liberated.
Very nice. So So what is liberation? We are reading about the chapter Krishna consciousness, the matchless gift. Liberation, right? About the liberation. And what is that matchless gift? Prabhupada is saying that this liberation, unentanglement. And what is that liberation actually? Liberation doesn't mean that, at the end of the life, when we leave the body, we go back to the spiritual world. Is that liberation? Is that the meaning of liberation? No. Prabhupada is explaining liberated means here in this life itself, right now. If so long as we understand we are not the body, we are liberated. That's what Prabhupada is saying. There is no need. One is liberated already if he accepts the fact that he is soul, not the body. He's liberated already, and then he's not. And that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? You're not bound by the karma. If you're not bound by the karma, if you're doing it in the right consciousness, it's not binding you. And that's what the liberation means. Okay. So liberation is not something that occurs in the event, but liberation is a state of mind. It is a state of mind that we are freed from, this entanglement. We already understand that because we are not the body, because we are not the right proprietor. We are not the proprietor. We don't, we don't have that consciousness of lording it over. We understand that the real proprietor is the Lord, then we are already freed. That's liberation. Very nice and very practical. If we think, and it's very deep also, if we think about it, if we give it a thought and, we just try to understand really what it means, it's not very difficult as to, like people do, like Prabhupada was mentioning in a little earlier in the paragraph that Vishwamitra, he did the austerities. He did so much penances on austerities for years and years and years. What happened at that point? He was at a point, the story of Vishwamitra, right? He got attracted to a woman who's coming from the Swargaloka, and he got entangled, even though he was a sannyasi. Then he ended up marrying her. He got the children. So these austerities, so many hard things and tapasyas and so many other things that people do. But really, if we just understand that we are not the body, we are the soul, and we are not the proprietor. If we do whatever we have to do, it is so simple. Krishna consciousness is not difficult. We just have to take it seriously. We just have to understand it in a right perspective. And that's what dear Prabhupada has, he has put it so clearly for us. We are so fortunate that we are at this very, you all at this young age, you're getting to, understand what he's trying to explain. Make it so simple. Okay. Liberation entails freedom. Let's read a little bit and then we'll stop today. Maybe one more paragraph. Who would like to read?
Param.
Can I, Mataji? Can Mihika?
Param.
Can Mihika?
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Everybody hold on. Let's see who didn't get chance to read. We have to be fair to everyone, right? I think Omkar hasn't read. Omkar, you want to read?
Yes, Mataji.
Go ahead. And I'm
Liberation.
so happy, actually. I'm so happy that you're all so enthusiastic. This is so fortunate. It really, I'm really, it touches my heart so much when you're all so much enthusiastic at this age. You want to read, you want to read. It's not simply just reading, it's like you want to engage into the mood that Prabhupada is in. That's so wonderful. So you're all really, really very nice children. I'm so happy that we are all reading this together. Okay, so we'll read more and more and more again as we move, right? So let's start. Yes, go ahead, Omkar.
Liberation entails freedom from all false conceptions. It is not that upon liberation one acquires 10 hands. In Srimad Bhagavatam, liberation is defined as muktir, hitvan
Yata Rupam. Mukti means to give up, and Anyata Rupam denotes a false conception of life. This is to say that when one is situated in his original constitutional position, having given up all false notions, he is liberated. It is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam that by the acquisition of knowledge, one becomes liberated immediately. That knowledge can be very easily acquired, for it is simple. God is great and I am very small. He is the supreme proprietor supplying all necessities, and I am his servant. Who can challenge this? It is a fact. We are simply under the false impression that we are this or that, and this leads us to the ultimate false impression that we are God. Yet we do not consider what manner of God we are. A small bodily disorder will send us to the physician. One who claims to be the supreme, therefore, should be understood to have fallen to the last snare of Maya. One who is thus fallen cannot even be liberated, for he is bound by false impressions. Only when one has attained proper knowledge can he actually be liberated. The stage of liberation is also called the Brahmabhuta stage. One who has attained this stage is characterized by Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in this way: Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati samaha sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param.
Very nice.
One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity, and in that state he achieves pure devotional service unto me.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Param. Sorry, Omkar. See, how do we get bhakti? Here is the answer. Here is the key of every single thing that Bhagavad Gita is trying to teach us. The ultimate thing that is Bhagavad Gita is trying to teach us. What is that? One who thus transcendentally situated. Now see, there is in every single line, there is so much meaning to it. One who thus transcendentally situated means, when will we be situated in transcendence? First of all, right now we are in the complete mode of ignorance, right? So what are the stages? From the mode of ignorance, we slowly can raise to the mode of passion, then to the mode of goodness. Then after the mode of goodness, slowly we can transcend that, right? So it takes a long journey for the soul. But by the mercy, if we are fortunate enough to gain that mercy of the Lord, of the Guru, we can come from that mode of ignorance to transcendence very quickly. Okay, but it could take ages, it could take lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, unless Krishna's somehow, by some fortunate thing that we become entitled, or we get this mercy, we can transcend that very quickly. So that moment, this opportunity, this moment that we have, we understand with this, we can transcend them. So what is it saying? One who thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He can realize the Lord, the presence of Lord in everything, right? Bhagavad Gita is teaching us so much about the Lord. And we realize that. And then he never laments or desires to have anything. He's equally disposed to every living entity. He becomes a well-wisher and a friend to every living entity. And thus, in that state, he achieves the pure devotional service unto me. Okay, so that is the chapter We do have more, so we'll continue next week. We'll end here today. Okay, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Bye.
Ki jai. We'll say the pranam.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Bye.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.